committee that appointed me was looking at my background. This is my 30th year in government. I've been a staff to Township, County, and City government. I have a natural resources background, and a bachelor's from Grand Valley and a master's from MSU out of the College of Ag and Natural Resources. So kind of the cool thing is the committee picked me, I think, based on my credentials. I have heretofore not been a politician, but now I am. So it's nice to meet everyone. You've got my card. I'm actually here to introduce myself. I'm kind of making the rounds with the community, but there are some things that I hope to talk about tonight too. So I don't know if there are any questions, but I have 2 cards.
Actually, I think there was 3 things we talked about that's in our township that we know of. Browns Pond Dam being one of them. Culverts that we're trying to figure out who has jurisdiction over what.
That seems to be a common problem.
And we have a couple issues with drainage from properties, from one properties to another. In fact, you had received a letter that I got a copy of. And we also have someone in the audience that would like to speak to you later because they also have a drainage problem.
Okay.
So those are the 3 I know of. Is there anything else that the board, and she also would like to address the audience as the introduction and find out if there's general questions. I know you can't answer in depth.
Right. So I'm not sure if you want to.
Well, we've kind of been giving information back and forth with Browns Pond Dam. You've gotten some information. Mr. Schultz is here to address the issue also after you.
Okay.
So that's, you know, we had a special meeting with Stephanie and Dave Schultz early on, prior to you taking office. So now that you're coming in, we definitely want you involved in the process to find out what our options are.
So I want to kind of get a handle on the 3 distinct things. The 2 drainage problems are probably easy to talk to than property owners, but the actual Browns Pond Dam, I mean, there's a few options, and Mr. Schultz has looked into them. And basically, the drain commissioner can't do anything under the state law until we're petitioned or asked to do so. So I guess it's more of a community decision of, you know, what we're going to do, if anything, and then what that entails. And basically what happens is either my office is petitioned to say, hey, drain commissioner, do something about this and decide. But first I need direction from the community. And you know, Mr. Schultz has more background on it, but as I understand it, we could establish a lake board, or do inter-county drain arrangements. There's several things that we can do, but basically they're mechanisms for financing the project. And it becomes kind of a community decision how you want to do that. Typically there's an assessment district put together, and the cost of the project goes on the property owners who benefit. And that's typically the folks closest to it. Sometimes it includes some cost sharing with the road commission or the township, depending on the nature of the project. So that's kind of a generic overview, but I think the bottom line is I need some direction as to where this community wants to go.
Correct.
If you have any other questions, I know there's been some real dilemma of who bears the brunt of the cost, and you know, I can't tell you that. That's a decision you have to make, but I did think of something because of my planning background, that when you have a tough decision like this of who, A, do we do anything, and B, if we do, who bears the cost, sometimes a community survey or some other means of sort of gathering input is a good idea, because sometimes you hear from the vocal minority. Sometimes you don't hear from folks that it's really important to hear from. So a written survey instrument might not be a bad idea, which I'm capable of doing, and I do. I don't know if you want to get that involved. But you get to make the tough decision of what, if anything, you want to do about this. So I
definitely would think, I'd like to find out more about that, just because that's a good idea. I know, just for your information, I did kind of request from Mr. Schultz to get us an idea of how to work out the best pros and cons of each idea.
And
So that we aren't that far. That's something we're going to look at next, but I just want an overview of where where you stood on it remotely.
What's nice that you actually got an engineer involved, because when I'm petitioned, when the Office of Drain Commissioners petitioned, we have to go look into the situation and see what the problem is, and see if there's actually a problem. Then there's a board of determination, some other things that happen, but it starts with the engineer's review. So you guys are a little bit ahead of the game.
We're hoping. Well, no, that'll be next, we'll look at that.
Okay. I don't know if there are any other specific questions. I mean, I don't want to seem like I'm not being definitive, but
Well,
you have to give me direction and I can
Right.
get it done.
It's part of the process, and as I indicated to Mr. Schultz too, at some point, and I sent a copy to Norm where regarding the Browns Pond Association, that's something we're going to have a special meeting on regarding, just because it's such a big issue.
Is Norm in the audience?
He is. He's in the back
Okay.
row.
Hi.
You have the second vice chair also, Greg Vickers is also here.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise. So most of these folks are Browns Pond Dam folks?
No, I think that's
The two?
just the two, correct.
Awesome.
But they're the two top people on the association regarding the pond there,
And I have two cards.
so.
Did you guys have more?
Do you have, does the board have any other? I mean, I know that we have, more questions than answers right now.
I'd
On
like to
that?
hear from Mr. Schultz, and then maybe I can chime in if that's okay with you.
I think that's a good idea. Mr. Schultz, are you ready? Brenda gave us a good introduction in just a little bit, so
Okay.
you're next with your proposal.
Good to see you all again. At this point, the way I understand our situation is we need to, as a board or as a community, determine what authorizing agency is going to be established. There's 4 different approaches. One would be the Lake Board. One would be an inter-county drain. One would be a county drain, which would be sort of truncated at Skeels Road. And one is to work within the existing assessment district setup that you have. Now, whether we have a special meeting to discuss the pros and cons of that, because it could take a bit more time than maybe the citizens here would wish to put up with. But really, that is the first step. Now, there are certain things that need to be done, whichever step you take, and I think that the engineer's report is important. It's actually required by law. A couple of the steps, and it's probably recommended for a couple of the others, just to set up clearly what the barriers are, what the burdens are, what the options are on finding a solution. That step would involve also working up the estimated costs for any of the repairs or retrofits that would be necessary to bring the dam into compliance with the state requirements and with general engineering practice.
Are you talking about
Standard.
step 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of the steps that need to be taken are pretty much mandatory in order to satisfy the state. But there are other steps that could be taken that are not quite as mandatory, but might be desired by the population. I was talking to Melanie, one of them is raising the static water level of Browns Pond to create maybe a deeper water, healthier resource. The deeper the water, the more dissolved oxygen you get in it, the cooler the pond is, the more algae blooms you get. But it's not necessary in order to satisfy the state. So I would be looking at presenting both the required actions necessary to bring the dam into compliance, and then another set of optional things that could be considered that would still possibly be deemed necessary or desirable enough to be paid for. I guess the best step the best perspective on going into a more formal arrangement than just the local assessment district is the financing capacity. That if you go to a lake board or a county drain or an inter-county drain, then the county officials have the ability to bond a project so that the cost of any improvements can be spread over a number of years, so that individual landowners aren't going to get creamed of a one-time assessment that maybe they can't afford. So that's really I think the biggest advantage of going to an authorizing entity beyond the township level.
I have a question for you, because part of that's the pros and cons of each idea. If we went with step one, which is the general consulting regarding establishment of authorizing agency, would we get a written list of pros and cons regarding each
We could do that, and do it that way, sure.
idea?
Sure.
And this is, in essence, searching out the best way to go beneficially if the dam is to stay there, and like you're saying, how best to spread out the cost and the total cost. That's an estimated, the step one is estimated at $500. And as I
Yeah.
indicated, that, because of what it is, would actually come out of the general fund. That doesn't come out of the Brown Pond Dam Fund regarding any literal costs. If we started with step one, got that information from you, how much would that help us regarding the direction to go? Because at what point does step 2, 3, and 4 come in? Prior to us establishing that authorizing?
Well, you could authorize step 2, like I said, whether you established a county drain or an inter-county drain or a lake board, or even stayed with the existing assessment district setup, you're going to want to see an engineer's report of what tangible steps, construction related, are going to have to be taken to bring the dam into compliance. So really, that could be authorized at this time too, and it might make it a little more efficient. While I'm doing research on one, it spreads to the other. But that's your choice. I'm here to serve your best understanding of how to proceed.
Step 1 and step 2 would be 2 separate prices then, or if we went right to step 2, would it be
Well, Melanie had asked me to break things down a little further. Originally, when I had sent her a proposal, boom, let's go do the project. And of course, I was a little too eager, got the cart ahead of the horse, so to speak. And so I stepped back and broke it down into these 4 tangible steps that, and as an engineer, really, my clients are free to fire me anytime they wish. With taking 4 steps, you have decision points that it's a little easier then as a board, that if you're dissatisfied with your professional services, you can say, well, okay, we're done with you now, you've done your 2 steps, bye. But, that's just trying to give you a better idea of the steps that are going to be needed in order to get to the completion, to the finish line.
I think where the question came in is because step 1 would be paid for out of the general fund.
correct?
Versus the engineering, then we're getting into the actual engineering.
So that would be
Out of the Brown Pond Dam.
Yes, and
Fund.
I'm not,
And
I'm sorry.
there isn't particularly funding left in there.
right.
So I guess where my thought was, I personally think we should pursue now. 2, 3, 4, we need to look at how that's gonna be funded. We're going into the budget process, we really have to look at that, because as it stands now, there isn't enough money in that fund to do this. And we don't have anything established regarding more money, and that's a catch-22, because we gotta figure out what's the best thing to establish. That's why I did ask you to break it down in particular because of that.
And it is worth doing a little bit of research on that, because some of the legislation allows for the preliminary studies to be folded into the ultimate project cost, where if you do something too soon before you've started the legal process, then those costs can't be captured by that new entity you're creating. It would have to be out of the general fund. But again, it's more legal than engineering, so I don't know if I'm the best expert on that
We should,
specific topic.
we should search that out.
Madam Chair?
So
I'm sorry, when you're at a good point, I'd like to just share a few things, if I could.
yep, if you could, you wanna step back up and share, yep.
Okay, well, we might want to share the podium, so.
Yeah, because we really don't want to spend a whole night on this. This is really a bigger
No,
issue than this meeting, but I
Right.
want to get through something here.
Okay, just a couple points. If the county drain commissioner's office gets involved, there's a threshold at which I can bond. That's over 300,000. And when you bond, you can spread it over time, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever, because you've got that ability. It's almost like a mortgage, you've got more time to spread it out. If it's under that amount, my abilities are limited to spread it out. I'm trying to look at other options more, and some of the questions I've asked is, could you have multiple districts have smaller projects and go in together and bond? The initial response was, no, each district's its own legal entity, and you can't commingle financing. So think about that 300,000 threshold. And I'll look more into what's my ability if it's less than that, because as I understand it, then it's a bank note, and when the project's done, I simply spread the cost, okay? And that could be to 15, 20, 30 people, and if it's starting to get up there, you know, that could really hurt. The other thing is, if there's a petition, it can come from the township, or it can come from five property owners. And I want the property owners to know that too, because if there have been cases where, you know, the township isn't really willing to do that, the property owners are, but then that usually means a smaller pool of people to help pay for the project. Things to keep in mind.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So this is-
Okay, I'm looking at all of this that you wrote down, Mr. Schultz, and this right here totals $13,700, and this is getting everything ready for construction. Am I correct in that? That's not,
That actually includes the construction engineering as well. So it'd be all of all the professional services involved in it through completion of the project.
okay, so the total amount would be $13,700, or I see on there, not more than $17,000.
Right. So the estimated amount was 13,700. The not to be exceeded amount would be 17,000.
And that's completed.
No, that's not doing the
That's
literal
just-
work.
okay,
That's just
that's
the
just-
engineering
that's
work.
okay,
That's the
what I want.
engineering,
Engineering work,
surveying,
right,
inspection, the design, acquiring, applying for and acquiring permits from the state.
Right, and that's
all
what
the
I read through
calculations, et
here.
cetera.
That's what I wanted to be sure of, because it says construction management, I just wanted to make sure what that meant, okay? So we have no idea how much it's going to cost until we decide on the design and what we decide to do.
Right, and that's step two, where that would be determined, go through the shopping list, the wish list of all the different things that certain individuals want to have done, or that the engineer says have to be done, and then you sort through it and decide, okay, we're gonna do these, and then you can look at the engineer's estimate to see what the actual contractor construction cost is gonna be, to actually bring the equipment out on the site and the workmen and the materials to retrofit the dam.
One more question, comment? Any engineering fees can be rolled into the final project and assessment. So if the township decided to go with the district and incur, actually, my office would incur those expenses, and just roll it into the later assessment. But it has to be part of a drain project for me to be able to do that.
Okay. Well, I think that brings us back to step one, where I'd really like to pursue step one, because that's gonna be the authorizing authority, and that kinda answers that question of the drain project and who's going to, go forward with it. And step 2, 3, and 4, I would like to take to the budget committee for discussion, because those, even though the costs are the possibility of enrolling them together, I'd like to kind of get more information specifically on that from you. And Dave, but that will be, part of that will come through your pros and cons, I believe, that we get. So that's my, what I'm seeking is actually proceeding with step one for the general consulting, incoming the $500 coming out of the, that would come out of the general fund. And that does have a document number of 021014-06. Do I hear a motion regarding proceeding with step one? Is there support? Trish?
I guess I have,
Sure.
okay. I'll support it right now,
Okay.
but then we can discuss more, correct?
Certainly, yeah.
Okay. Are we looking at this for all of the township paying for this? I mean, you know, we've had the different options of petition or doing a written survey to gather input.
Right.
I mean, you know, we're starting out by having the taxpayers pay the $500.
Correct, that's for determining who's the authorizing agent. The reason being because in the past, we did just an internal one with the township, but it was a limited time frame and a limited amount of funds. That was for maintenance. We're talking about repairs or changes or something much larger, the dollar amount. And if I recall, when we talked about it before, when Stephanie was here, the Muskegon County one also included, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brenda, did it include the township as a portion in that, if it was the,
Typically, yeah,
if it was
typically,
the county?
right. Typically, when there's any project, at some point when everything's done, the drain commissioner gets to decide an apportionment, who pays what. And typically, the road commission pays a portion, the local unit pays a portion, it's usually a small amount, and then the lion's share goes to other property owners. And that's usually based on the size of the parcel, proximity to the water body, various other things, but the district's defined. Now, in this case, I doubt that anything would go to the road commission,
Correct.
because it really doesn't involve any of them, their facilities, so it'd be, and the apportionment to the township could be decided to be zero. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. And I have yet to do an apportionment. I have several of them in the works that were kind of hanging and need to be picked up. But that's how I understand it on the other ones I'm working on.
So why I'm seeking step one in particular regarding listing those pros and cons, because either we, as Bridget pointed out, the township or 5 property owners, which is
Yes.
potentially there too, need to have information as to what's the best way to cover the area to help spread out that cost. Because we don't know what the cost is even yet.
No, no. we
So
won't
that
know
was,
far
that was
along.
the reason I asked Dave to break it down the way he did also, because I think I wanted that out, because that, I truly feel, comes
Needs
out
to
of
be
the,
this-
out of the board's budget, not out of the Browns Pond Dam, so.
Have you talked to the Browns Ponds people? What's their thought?
Well, only Greg, I did talk to Greg, but that's where we're back and forth, it's like a catch-22, they wanna know final cost. Well, we don't have final cost because we have to have information first. Well, we don't know which way's the best way to go for, if we establish what we did before, it's people directly on the pond. And now we're saying, how much is this gonna cost for the special assessment? That's part of the reason, and the other one is the idea of a survey is a wonderful idea, but I think that works hand in hand with trying to determine which agency. Okay, that's just, so I
Well,
could be wrong.
Yeah, I think that step one is a good start. But I think we need to be sure that we keep the people up to date.
Right.
Especially the people on Browns Pond, so they know what's going on.
And that's where I think getting that information and having a special meeting is the best way to, because that's just focused right on that information. But we need, I think we still need that step one, which will go to, we have a Motion by Don and support by Debbie. Roll call vote.
Don,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Melanie,
Aye.
Lyle.
Yes.
So motion is carried. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
We will start on that process. And thank you, Brenda, for your information. I think we have more questions now than answers, but. The next thing is the brine request. New way of figuring this year, rather than the way they figured it in the past, they're trying to make it more fair. As you can see, it's still partnering, 50% being paid by the township, 50% by the road commission. And of course, they need their request in February. Did you have any questions regarding the brine application? They're starting with a new process to try to benefit the brine that's being put right on the roads. It's a continuous brine based on mileage and calculated at 2,500 gallons per mile. You don't get a choice anymore to pick roads in and out. They're all in. I don't think we've done that in the past. So there's going to be more consistency with billing, but no spot brining. So I need to know if the board would like to proceed with the brining of one application where the road commission pays 50%, township pays 50% for the 2014 summer. And that is document 021014-07.
I make a motion to document 021014-07 for the brine detail for that application.
I support.
Whoops.
I think it's mandatory that we do that.
Brine, no, we can opt out of brining.
I mean, for the township.
Oh, that we continue to do it
Yes,
for the people?
It's just,
Well, it's not mandatory, but I think it's
the roads are a
beneficial.
disaster if we don't.
Yeah. Roll call, please. They're a disaster anyway, but thank you.
Lisa,
Yes.
Lyle,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Don, Melanie.
Aye. Motion carried. Budget amendments. The first one being the,
We skip a minute.
did I skip something? Oh, yes, I did, thank you. Budget committee, I saw budget. Budget committee meeting dates. The budget committee will consist of the township board. And you guys have a calendar looking at the month we're in, February. We know the 19th is the planning and zoning meeting that evening of the 19th.
And the 25th is the election.
And 25th is the election, and the 20th is the public accuracy test. And Debbie's got the busiest schedule right now with the 14th and 28th being full days. So looking at the calendar, looking at afternoons, 2 or 3 o'clock, what do you see that works?
We're going to March also.
The very beginning of March, but I would,
Well, we
I
need
think, we're gonna
three
schedule 2.
3 meetings?
We're gonna schedule 2 and see if we
Okay.
have to,
Just two.
we're gonna schedule 2 and see if we have to go to a third.
Then we had 3 last year.
Yes.
Yes, but we'll schedule 2, and if we have to, we'll know at the second one if we gotta go to the third one. Any dates, we're the 10th today, the 14th's out, do you want to start with this week in the afternoon? Debbie, I'm kinda looking at you,
This
because
week?
you're smacked this week with people coming to pay their taxes. You're gonna be really busy
That's right.
generally through the 14th. And then it slacks off for you a little bit till 28th. So,
How about the 18th?
in the afternoon at 2? What, how about the 18th?
It sounds fine with me.
2 or 3? 2 work?
Yeah.
Do you have a treasurer's meeting? Not this month.
No, I do.
Do you have a clerk's meeting on that day?
On the 18th.
How about, would 3 work?
3 would work.
Okay, so 3 PM on the 18th. And 25th is the election. So,
What about the 20th?
20th is out for me.
Yeah, the 20th, we have an accuracy. Well,
That's at 10 a.m.
It's in the morning.
Okay.
How about the 26th or 27th? That's after the election.
26th is fine with me.
26th at 3?
That's fine.
Okay.
I can't guarantee how alive I'll be.
I think it's sleep till 3.
Yeah, no, 2:45.
I'll sleep until 3. 'cause that's
Okay,
what it is.
do I hear a motion to accept the dates of February 18th and 26th at 3 p.m. for the budget committee meetings?
I'll make a motion to accept
I have a motion second. All those
February
in
18th
favor?
and 26th.
Sarah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Those are the dates, thanks, Lon. Skipped right over that. Budget amendments, because we are going to have, well, we had special meetings earlier in the year, and we are going to have 2 regular meetings and 2 to 3 special meetings. The budget amount is, original amount's $5,000, we're at $49.96 now. I put in an amendment change of $1,500 to bring that up to $6,500 for the trustee salary. Document 021014-08. Do I hear a motion?
Also move.
Lyle moved, is there support?
Support.
Debbie? Roll call, please.
Lyle,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Melanie,
Aye.
Lisa,
Yes.
Don.
Motion carried. The next one is fire operating snow removal. The original was $2,000. We have exceeded that, unfortunately, this month, between snow removal and salting, and, oh yeah, we had to have a loader come in, unfortunately, which brought it to $34.45. Proposing to amend it up to $5,000, that's a change of $3,000. I did meet with Dave Barrett. Larry was out of town, I did with Dave Barrett to go over that figure to make sure. That is guesstimating approximately $1,500 for the next 2 months. That might be high, but we just don't know. So that's document 021014-09. Do I hear a motion?
I'll support that amendment.
So moved. Support.
Lyle, Debbie support, roll call please.
Lyle,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Melanie.
Aye. Motion carried. And the third one is also in fire operating, it's the electric. Original was $4,000, same thing, it exceeded, was $4,312.94. The proposed amendment is to bring it up to $5,200 with a change of $1,200, same thing, I met with Dave on that. It's going with the best guesstimate. And that is document 021014-10. Do I hear a motion?
Now, that's the April 1st, is that?
That's the projected, hopefully, yes, to bring it through the end of the year.
Which is the end of March.
Correct. April 1st, yeah.
I'll support.
There wasn't a motion yet.
Oh.
Well, I'll make a motion.
Okay. Is there support?
I'll support.
Roll call, please.
Lisa,
Yes.
Lyle,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Melanie,
Aye.
Don.
Yes.
Motion carried. The next one kinda is Don's. This is the mediation determination between Fruitland Township and White Lake Ambulance, which of course everyone got listed in there, including Blue Lake Township. The total for that ended up being, just the mediation, $3,625. And then it has the portion that's Blue Lake Townships, which is $378, that's figured out through their unit, population, taxable value, usage, and some weights. I think that's the same, is that the same way everything was figured before for
Yes,
the
it
weighted
is.
formula?
Yes, it is.
Before the millage. Unfortunately, we have to bear the cost of this, and I did give it a document number of 021014-11. I and proposing we approve the payment of the $378. I am seeking the insurance company to pay it. They did assign us a attorney for that, and I have that question out to him. If the insurance won't pay it though, we need to determine the payment of it.
How long do we have to pay it?
That is a good question, Don. They didn't, we just got this information, when are they expecting payment? The sooner the better, because it goes to this Mr. Chessman.
We
But-
get a bill. I don't know when she's gonna send it.
So the literal bill hasn't been sent out.
No.
So we should table-
We just decided to take this at the last meeting, which is, what, just 2 weeks ago.
Which was the determination of how much it is.
Mhm.
Well then, if I'm waiting for an answer back from the attorney, because I want to know if this is covered.
Yeah.
That's the,
I would say there's no reason to pay it until you
Right.
get the bill.
so let's table document 021014-11 to the March meeting. Do I hear a motion?
What, don't we have to pay that small amount anyway?
We have to pay it, but there's two things that was just said. Don says that there should be a bill sent out. This is the weighted formula, and how it was determined. And hopefully our insurance will cover it because it didn't go to trial. It went to mediation. Do they still cover that? I don't know. So we need to find that out. So if we table it to the March meeting, that would give us the time to get the bill. I'm sure Jean will be getting on that and to find out for sure about the insurance company. And granted, it is a smaller amount than originally thought, but I'm not sure if this is over. Is there still a deficit in the overall?
No, it's closed.
No, the mediation's closed, but is there an overall deficit in the budget still?
No.
That was corrected too? Okay, so then that's good. That could be the final cost. But I,
Less than what we first heard about.
oh yes,
Yes, it does.
greatly less. So I need a motion to table document 021014-11 to the March meeting.
So moved.
I'll support.
Roll call, please.
Debbie?
Yes.
Lyle?
Yes.
Don?
Yes,
Melanie?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes. Motion carried. And we're to the fire chief. The first thing up is the probationary firefighter, Mike McFarland.
Yes, you have Mike McFarland's application for the position of probationary firefighter, and in the letter I sent you, I'm asking for the Township Board to approve, to accept the application of Mike. His background check came back negative, driver's check came back negative, and of course this would be based on his successfully passing his workman's comp physical.
And negative in that case is good.
Uh,
You're saying negative, so it came back with no issues or whatever, negative
Negative, no issues on his.
is good, whatever, okay,
More positive physical.
okay. Thank you. So you're asking for the acceptance of Mike McFarland for the position of probationary firefighter upon successfully passing his workman's comp physical, document 021014-01. Do I hear a motion?
Is his physical scheduled?
His physical will be scheduled after approval. If it's not approved, we don't schedule the physical.
Very good.
Do I hear a motion
I'll make a
for
motion.
approval? Is there support?
I'll support.
Roll call, please.
Lisa?
Yes.
Lyle?
Yes.
Melanie?
Aye.
Debbie?
Yes.
Don?
yes.
Motion carried.
Second item,
Yep.
according to your agenda, is I'm asking for the approval of the Blue Lake Township Board to promote firefighter Michelle Bridges to the position of Lieutenant Training Division.
Okay, that's document 021014-03. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll support.
Roll call, please.
Don?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Melanie?
Aye.
Lyle?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
That's a good motion.
Motion carried. Congratulations. item is the duty shift program.
Yes, duty shift program, that went to the attorney at the last meeting. Change was made, which was just within one sentence. And so I'm requesting the approval of the duty shift program, SOG. We plan on starting it at the beginning of the new fiscal year, April 1st.
Okay, and the question came up before regarding how that would be paid.
Yes.
You are handling,
It's, I shouldn't say we, the committee and myself, and I've done chaplains here, chaplain and deputy chief for the, kind of like the forerunners of this program. And they calculated that if we took a 5% decrease in pay, which meant approval of all the firefighters, that we could run this program within the same amount budgeted for the personnel wages, which in our budget, it's been every year that I've been on, $40,000. We're not gonna have any increase in that. It's not gonna really affect the budget in terms of wages at all. The firefighters had a month, and then I extended it to 6 weeks to give their input on the program in general, including the decrease in pay. And as questions came in, we addressed those questions to the whole, to all the firefighters. And we went to the extent, this is why I extended it to 6 weeks, we went to the extent of extending it, so any further comments, questions came in, and there have been no further questions or comments on this from the firefighters.
okay, I have a question for you, and that's not in the meat of this, but you're looking at taking implementing this in the new fiscal year.
Yes.
Have you considered the cost and bearing it without decreasing the pay, because that was the great question last month, is decreasing.
And I'm gonna pass that on to Chaplain, who did the work on that matter.
In a desire to make sure that we did not exceed our budgeted amount of doing our best to make sure that we excel in all areas of the law, we thought that was best to make sure that we stayed where we were currently budgeted without any kind. It's hard to say how many runs you're going to make in a year, but we wanted to make sure that we stay within the confines of our budgeted allotment. So we worked hard to make sure that what we needed to decrease in pay was only, the very minimum to make sure that we could pay for the duty shift program. We feel really good about that, and the firefighters are very, very excited about this program as well.
So that answered that question, but that was looking at it in the current fiscal year. We're going into the upcoming fiscal year. Is the mindset set still the same of the decrease in the overall pay of 5%?
Yes.
Have you considered it without the decrease?
I did consider it, crunched the numbers of what we thought was that we were going to be too close to that budgeted amount, not knowing how many runs we were going to make in a current year. We felt better to go ahead and take the decrease. This is subject to change, of course, within the, in 2015. But right now, we'd rather be within the confines of our budget instead of coming back to you and saying we're over budget.
Correct, but we're going into the new budget, the fiscal year 2015. Are you figuring it both ways? Whenever we're getting presented with the information from the fire department, will we get the information with that decrease and without that decrease? Proposed dollar amount, you're saying $40,000 is the amount you picked with, and you don't know how many runs. Truthfully, you could exceed that $40,000 in one given year because of runs, irregardless of this.
Yeah, we could, regardless.
Oh, sorry. Stand corrected, you're right. So,
How
the
much of
board,
a difference was it?
How much?
Mine would have been affected the most, $1.03 an hour.
Yeah, you're talking about a difference of about 43 cents an hour is the wage difference, so. You're not talking about an exorbitant amount per hour.
correct.
But what it does allow us to do is to to make sure that we're not increasing at all. We're basically, it's a wash.
And everybody feels something good about that.
Yeah.
I have a question. I realize this is something new. I mean, it's hopefully good for the township because somebody will be at the fire stations. Can this be like a trial on a trial basis, or is once it gets in, it's in there? Or can we just see how it works out so we can, kind of go by that? Does that sound fair?
This is a standard operating guideline. Yes, it can be adjusted. And any adjustments, especially regarding salary, would come to the board. Any adjustments regarding time, like day of the week, that's something that we would handle. In terms of the deficit, we have a way of being fair in signing up. Okay, we work from the top down and go through the entire roster before we start again. So if somebody, and Chaplain mentioned, 43 cents is pretty much the average of loss per hour. If somebody can sign up for one day and easily, again, not knowing the number of calls, easily make that up within one duty shift day.
And I'm not worried about that as much as seeing if it's worth being there. Do you know what I mean? I'm not, I just want to make sure that this is going to be a program that works
Sure. And
for the
I think,
township.
Debbie, I think that, it would be silly for us not to make assessments of, one of the things that this allows us not only for calls to be available, but just for weekly preventative maintenance on our trucks and station care duty itself, that oftentimes is more difficult to handle. This would solve that almost immediately, which means that we're going to be taking better care of the equipment because we'll have more available time as an allotment of time to handle more of that load. So we feel like we're being better stewards of not only our time, but also of our equipment and resources. That's our hope. Obviously, I can only tell you this in theory right now, but I hope to come back to you next year and say, this was a grand success.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, like, after 6 months, can you guys come back and say, gee, this is working great, this is what's going on?
I'll yield.
I would
We'll
love
have
to-
enough
I would love to hear
information then
what's
to
going on.
give you an update.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
I have put one more question, because you did specify, and Larry can answer this. Thank you, though. On the sign up, because I think that's been a question too. You're saying that the months put out there, people can sign up starting right down, but everybody has the opportunity, not one person can.
Not one person can monopolize it, no.
So everybody gets the chance to, because I think that's a question too, to make sure that it's fair, available to everybody. And you laid out the guidelines of how probationary could be in there and what they have to have and what criteria they have to meet. I think that was well laid out.
Right. And the schedule, how often we're doing it is also laid out in there.
Correct. Any other questions from the board? So we're looking for approval of the duty shift program SOG document 021014-04. Do I hear a motion?
So,
Is there support?
I'll support.
Roll call, please.
Don,
yes,
Lisa,
Yes.
Lyle,
Yes.
Melanie,
Aye.
Debbie.
Yes.
Last item on the agenda is going back to the Code of Ethics, which I brought up last month. And there was an item on there, item number 12, which could have been interpreted two different ways. So it was sent to the attorney for his opinion on that. And his opinion was leave 12 alone, but add 13. That's basically it in a nutshell. Bulleted item 13. So you have that there, and that's his final recommendation on that. So I'm asking for approval to add the Code of Ethics to the application, as part of the application.
Does the board have any questions? This is document 021014-05, seeking support to add the Code of Ethics to the part of the firefighter application packet.
I'll make a motion.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Roll call, please.
Lisa,
Yes.
Lyle,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Melanie,
Aye.
Don,
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Count payable.
Electronic federal tax payment made to the U.S. Treasury in the amount of $2,484.32. I make the motion that we approve that payment.
Is there support?
I support.
Roll call, please.
Lyle,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Melanie,
Aye.
Lisa, Don.
Yeah,
Motion carried.
January 2014 Township expenses, general fund, $20,013.31. Fire operating fund, $10,365.83. Building department, $16.06. PTAF fund, $1,216.56. Browns Pond, $2,025, for a total $33,636.76. And I make the motion that we approve those payments.
second.
John seconded. Roll call, please.
Lyle,
Yes.
Don,
Yes,
Lisa,
Yes.
Melanie,
Aye.
Debbie.
Yes.
Motion carried. Your chief portion of public comments. I know there's been controversy over this because people don't think it should just be comments, but under the circumstances, especially in our past, we're not gonna get into debates or arguments. It's accepted as comments. People think I'm rude because I say thank you, but I feel I should say that after the comment. Having said that, if you would kindly step up to the microphone for comments, they are limited to 3 minutes. And please identify yourself.
I'm Greg Biscus, 11576 Pond Road, Blue Lake Township. The comment, I guess I really don't have a comment. What I would like to know is exactly what does the $12,000 to $13,000 curtail? What type of work is going to be done? I'm just kind of flabbergasted at the cost to engineer this type of a project. Now, I don't know what's all involved in it, so that's my only comment or question. Could I get a copy of that 4-step that Dave had given you? Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment?
Larry Radke, Fire Chief, Blue Lake Township Fire Department. Today in the mail, actually probably came when I was out of town, cost recovery program. We got for 2 consumer calls, total of $697.49, which meant that as far as the township was concerned, those 2 calls were paid for by consumers. They didn't cost the township anything for wages and our response to those calls.
Public comment?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I would just like the board to know that we are having our 6th annual Blue Lake Township Firefighters Association St. Patrick's Day 5K Run Walk. And this year we added to it a half-mile fun run for kids 9 and under. And we would like anybody that is interested in being a sponsor. I have sponsor forms and also the fire department does. You can get them at the Township Hall, and you can get the applications at the Township Hall, or you can go on bluelakefire.org. That has an application form on there also. And I'm just hoping that we will get as many people to come and support us as we did in the last few years. And anyway, if anybody has any questions about it, please, contact myself or anyone on the fire department, and we'll get you all the information. And the only other question that I have is that in the past, the township has let us use the bathroom here, and you can tell me later on whether or not that's okay to do it again this year. We also have porta potties, and I think they used them more last year than they did this one, but it's nice to have another bathroom available. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Jim Schlichting, 10360 Blue Lake Road. Another month's gone by, and we've just witnessed another public performance of the Blue Lake Township Board. Public is growing impatient with the attitude of this board. People of this township seem to be the most distant concern when it comes to the operations of this government. Why is that? Let's talk this time about financial integrity. Immediately upon assuming the role of supervisor, there was the unilateral decision by this supervisor for the realignment and renaming of the chart of accounts. Also under the dictates of this supervisor, a new accounting software system was deemed an immediate need. Considering her past many years in the role as a township official, questions have to be asked why the great concern about the financial integrity of this township. If there was a need for fundamental changes in the township books and accounting practices, why was this not disclosed when campaigning for supervisor? Rather, why was the supervisor's campaign based on assurances of no major changes being needed in township government? What financial and accounting problems were known that were not made public? If there were no problems, why has there been tax dollars and staff time spent on no problems? What created the need that fundamental changes to the township books was the first priority? What efforts were made to match whatever changes were deemed necessary with the then existing system? Probably most important, what effort was made to match accounting changes to the needs and ability of other elected officials, as well as the need, ability, and desires of the general public? How well did the match go between the capabilities of those who were to use the new system and the resulting financial product? Is there some reason why the public should not expect more transparency and financial information under this new system? Why is it necessary with your new system to require from taxpayers a freedom of information request and the payment of additional fees for the public to have access to routinely prepared and recorded financial reports? Which was the inquiry that was made to the township attorney concerning the freedom of information matter? Was the inquiry, how do we make it difficult for our taxpayers to access accounting for the township? Or was the question, how do we enable the taxpayer to have more access to the financial condition of the township? The bottom line concerning this massive change, expense, and chaos have resulted from your decision is, who beside the supervisor benefits from the changes? What appears to have been taken place is a year of questionable bookkeeping and reporting that's taken place because of the obsession with control. There's no better way to gain control than to dedicate your solution, which is what happened. To have exclusive knowledge of the financial status of this township certainly is the ultimate power trip.
Thank you for your comment, Jim. Any other public comment?
Kevin Pycraft, 2535 Minor Road. A couple weeks ago, one of our probationary firefighters, Jonathan Jacobs, who is currently in the fire academy, went into the hospital with a high fever. After spending a day in the hospital, he was diagnosed with acute B-cell leukemia. This cancer is an aggressive cancer of the stem cells and is located in the bone marrow. Jonathan was immediately taken to St. Mary's Hospital in Grand Rapids, where he started treatment. Because of the aggressive nature of this cancer, the treatment must be aggressive as well. Jonathan is already starting his second round of chemotherapy and will be at St. Mary's for at least another couple weeks. And as I talked to him tonight, just before I came here this evening, he had received chemo both normally and through a spinal tap right into his spinal fluid, along with 2 more transfusions of blood. Jonathan is in a fight for his life. He is extremely strong in his faith and in his determination to fight this cancer. Jonathan is engaged to a very nice young lady. He has 2 children, Eli, who is 2.5 years old, and Evelyn, who is 1.5 years. His fire brothers and sisters have dedicated themselves to visit him and to supply for his needs because Jonathan has no insurance. Through his fire family, Jonathan has been named as a beneficiary of the Guns and Hoses hockey game that will take place on April 19th at 7 p.m. at Lakeshore Sports Center, and I hope that you would make that a part of your schedule. For whatever reason, the fire service here at times can generate some outside dissension and discord. It is my hope and prayer that at least in this one area, that we will be able to put away all bitterness and envy and strife and anger and malice and megalomania and hubris and come together to help fight for Jonathan's life with unanimity and passion. Constant dissonance will not help Jonathan fight leukemia. Jonathan needs our prayers and active concern, and I hope that we will support him as a township together.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
This is still on reduced in the firemen's wages. I thought the board was supposed to be in charge. Yeah, nobody ran any figures to see if there was any way they could do it without. They never explored any other options to handle the situation. And silence does not mean consent. There's not one of you guys on the board that isn't married. You all know that if your spouse is quiet and won't talk, there's usually a reason for it. That does not mean consent. I think you're sending a bad message to our firefighters that we're going to reduce your wages so you can support one of our new programs. That's all.
Thank you. Any others? Public comment? Hearing no more need for public comment, meeting is adjourned at 8:06 p.m. Dave, before you leave? You have
It'll be part of the discussions.
They probably talk you out.